He has mercy. And so people have to realize that God is a God of mercy and love.
The true identity of God is mercy. Mercy is who God is. Now, we are on Easter, the octave of Easter. Last Sunday was Easter. We were on to remember Mother Angelica, who died last Sunday. This is the octave of her death. Now, Mercy Sunday, 8 days later. How is Divine Mercy connected with Easter?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, in the liturgy, the Church has placed this great feast of Divine Mercy on the 8th day of the Easter octave, and it's kind of the climax, in a sense, the ending point. And I think that there's a good reason for that. In the resurrection narratives, in the Gospel of John, Mary Magdalene, as she's standing before the empty tomb and tears are pouring down her eyes, she sees two angels, one sitting at the head where Jesus' head was, and one where his feet were. And what Mary Magdalene sees there is what any good Jew would understand. The two angels framing a place is the Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament, and it's the mercy seat. So the first thing God does when he gives the covenant and the Ark of the Covenant at the Exodus is he says, I'm going to meet with my people there on the mercy seat. And now we find the new mercy seat, in a sense. And in this day of the resurrection, Jesus is revealing that he himself is the seat. The seat is no longer an object, a place, it's a person. And Jesus himself will be God's mercy seat where he wants to meet his people.
Now, Tim, regarding that, we celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday, what we call on the 8th day, the 8th day from Easter, and I've been told that the significance of that is 7 is being the perfect number in the Bible. You could explain that, but 8 also has a significance.
It sure does. 8 has a significance of the eternal, of the heavenly, and so God creates the world in 6 days, and he rests on the 7th day. But the 8th day signifies moving beyond creation into heaven, into eternity, and so that's why every baptismal font for the early Christians was 8-sided, to signify that your baptism was entering into the heavenly realities, into the divine life, into God's rest. And so the idea of Easter is this invitation to live God's rest, to enter into God's life. And that's where Divine Mercy takes us.
But then again, we also want to take a look at the fact that in this opportunity to enter into heaven, you have to be spotless. You have to be ready. And this beautiful feast gives us the complete forgiveness of sin and punishment, making us spotless.
Yeah, no, mercy, God's mercy, as we see in the story of the prodigal son. That's where you mentioned earlier the face of the Father is a loving face of mercy and seeking the face of God's fatherly mercy. Well, Jesus tells a story of the prodigal son, which I think illustrates. And in fact, it illustrates the secret of the Father, at the heart of the Father, because no one knows the Father except the Son, as Jesus says in the Gospel of John. And so what we have in the story of the prodigal son is a son who rejects his father's love and mercy, goes off into a far country. And for Jesus, this is the story of Israel. This is the story of Israel going into exile, rejecting God the Father's love and mercy. And yet the Father wants to take them back. In fact, when the prodigal son comes back, the Father doesn't have his arms crossed, angry, judging. He has his arms out in an embrace of love, and he runs to his son. And that's what Jesus is saying the Father is. Who the Father is, Jesus tells us and reveals to us, is a God of mercy and love.